Today, before your very eyes, I shall single-handedly butcher the German language. Hi, Neil McPherson here, Wirksworth Gunroom. Now today, to show you, double rifle by Merkel. I'll just show you that it's clear. Hopefully you can just see that. Okay, so rifle clear. Now, this is double-barreled rifle, as you can say. This is in 8x57IRS. Now, the 8x57IRS is the rimmed version of the classic 8x57 Mauser. The IS in the 8x57 Mauser's original designation was Infanterie Spitzgeschoss. Told you this was coming, which effectively meant an infantry round with a pointed bullet. And that pointed bullet was something that made a great deal of difference in the military scene around the late 1800s and around the turn of the century, 1900s. So the problem with that particular cartridge in this type of rifle was that it's a rimless cartridge, and a rimless cartridge in a side-by-side rifle presents problems with the extraction and ejection, which you don't have if you're using a conventional or the older type of rimmed cartridge. So the IRS version, the R is for rimmed, or I can't find what rimmed is in German, so once again my apologies to our Germanic speaking friends and viewers out there. Now, this particular rifle has been very kindly loaned to us by Viking Arms, who are the distributor for Merkel in the UK. We're agents for them, and this was sent down. A gentleman's looking for a different Merkel rifle than this one, or he's looking for a different format, but Merkel was one of the options, and so they very kindly sent this down as an example of the gunmaker's work. And what a fine piece of work it is. This particular model, side by side, 21-inch barrels. It's a side lock. It's got hand detachable locks. Merely rotate the little lever and pull them out. Am I going to do it when it's been loaned to me? No. But a very practical feature, particularly if you're travelling overseas. I mean, I've spent a little time in the Sahara some years ago, and one of the things that you particularly find there is very, very fine dust will work its way into absolutely everything. Now, we found problems with that in automotive cases, you can imagine, vehicle distributors. But equally, you can get just that same kind of problem in the lock of a rifle. And if you've got a double rifle and you're in the continent of Africa, well, it might be a matter of life and death whether it works or not. So if you can just turn a lever, pop the locks off, dust them out, drop of oil, put them back together, then you can keep your rifle in very good shape without having to take the tools out. So a lovely feature there. Moving over the rifle from one end to the other, let's start at the butt. We've got a rubberized butt plate. It's actually quite pliant, that is. The stock has a fantastic finish on it. They do loads of different grade stocks. I wasn't actually told what grade this came in. It's very straight through the stock, the grain, and that's something with stocks all over. The fancier the pattern, the more likely it's to have flaws in it. So there is an argument for going for a straighter grain in a higher power rifle. There's hand checkering there, sling swivel. Looking down on the pistol grip, you've got a small cap there, and then as we move forward we start to see the quality of the engraving. The engraving on this, all hand cut to my understanding. In a couple of places we have the Merkel name showing on it. Triggers are in the white. The gun is actually a selective ejector, as you'd probably imagine. Safety falls nicely to hand. Top lever, this is a little tight. I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. It's a brand new gun. I mean, it's been out as a demonstrator, but you know, other than that, it's a brand new gun. So I'd expect it to want to just ease up a little, but certainly that falls very nicely to hand. And one point with it is that it's very compact. When I can bring it up, you can quite see how you could bring it up and swing It was actually said by somebody with one of these, I could shoot rabbits running around my feet, and I think it was pretty much the case. It's very handy and very pointable. Now the pointability comes down to this particularly short barrel. You've got the very bright red sight there. That's one of these light gathering types. So as you bring it up, it drops straight in. It gives you a very bright bead, and that in bright sunlight it'd absolutely stand out like an LED or something like that. But you can imagine in a dark continental forest perhaps, that's just going to gather that little bit of light and give you that spot when you can see something charging at you. And it does actually appear that the rear sight, which hopefully you can see there, there's 3 little dots. I think they're illuminated, but I can't confirm that without getting right down in the dark. But certainly they produce a fantastic quick sight picture. The rifle does have provision for scope mounts. There's already a front scope base on the rifle there, and now that will take the Ernst Apel type of swing-in mounts, for which this plate would be removed here and you would have the rear catch taking its place. But I would say that for the sort of speed shooting, this is a perfect rifle for driven ball, absolutely made for it. And for that, I think the iron sights would be just what I'd want. You can bring it up, you can swing it in very fast. You just look at something, bring the rifle up, and it's there. It is at the very point that you'd bring it up. And I struggle to think that you'd acquire any faster with a scope or even a red dot. What you can do with this, of course, though, is say you wanted to go and take it deer stalking in Scotland. Why does nobody take double rifles deer stalking in Scotland? It's a puzzle, but in that case, put the scope on. These type of mounts will go straight back into register, so you won't have any loss of zero. You can have the scope on it for deer stalking. I don't know what sort of deer stalking you do, but in my experience, firing more than 2 rounds in close succession is unusual. I would say your experience may differ. You've maybe done a lot more deer stalking than me, but for that matter, fairly quick to reload. If you think how long it takes you to reload your double-barrel shotgun, well, does anybody go game shooting and say, well, I've got to have a full capacity 5 rounds or something in a shotgun because I can't reload too fast enough? Well, why make the distinction with a rifle? So I think it's got more practicality than people realise. Also consider, for the Scottish mountain, this is 7.5 pounds. In fact, 7.25 pounds. Did bring the scales, did weigh it. Not going to repeat the exercise, but yeah, 7.25 pounds is the correct weight on that. So without a scope, 7.25 pounds. How many bolt action rifles are coming in at that sort of weight? I think it's something to consider, particularly if you're lugging it up a mountain. A lightweight scope might only add a pound and a half, and you could be at the weight that a lot of conventional stalking rifles are at already. So perhaps it's something we ought to be seeing more of in the UK itself. Moving further forward, we've got a snap-on type forend, as you can see here. The rib incorporates the fitting for the sling swivel. Now if we look at the rib proper, you can see even where it's out of sight, where it drops below the line of the sights there, it's got a beautiful milled finish. And every detail about the fit and finish on this is utterly superb. The bores are crisp and clean, it's brand new, so you would expect that, but there is something about it that, I'll try and show you the muzzles without pointing them in your face. Every little detail is utterly beautiful, and the depth of bluing, superb. The finish on the locks, if I just let that catch the light. Absolutely gorgeous piece. So in this calibre, 8x57, perfect for wild boar, red deer, anything of that nature. You could pretty much take anything on the continent of Europe. Would you maybe choose it to go and hunt polar bears? I don't think anybody hunts polar bears really, do they? But say you needed it for that purpose, well, maybe you'd choose something with a bit more oomph, but I'd be pretty confident it would take one down. So for all practical sporting purposes that you might expect in Europe, this will do it. So in conclusion, if you're looking for a double rifle, you're probably looking for it for, you're going to be looking for it for one of two things: either wild boar on the continent, although it's perfectly usable, as I've said, for anything, red deer and so on, or you're looking for one of the African calibers, 375 H&H Magnum, 9.3 by 74 rimmed, which, where it's legal, and that's a subject for another video I'm sure, although it's very much the same cartridge. Certainly a Merkel such as this has got to be a very serious option. The side-by-side guns are a bit lighter on the whole than the over and unders, probably a bit quicker to reload. You can get 2 rounds in there rather easier than you can in this orientation, in my view. Your experience may differ. Now this, as you can see, this is a particularly fine example. They do a whole range of these, and it is rather bewildering trying to get down to what prices various models are. This particular example is come to us, it'll give us a retail of 11,500. Now that's something we're going to say, oh well, you know, I've never spent that much on a car and so on, but for that matter, your car's going to depreciate a lot quicker than this, and for the amount of detail and craftsmanship that's gone into this piece, I think it's actually superb value. Clearly it's going to be out of some people's price range, but for the workmanship that's in it and the beauty and joy it is to actually hold it in your hand, let alone to go out and take out your wild boar with it, I think it's utterly superb value. Anyway, if you want one of these or something like it, do get in touch. We're agents for Merkel through our connections at Viking, and would like to thank them once again for making this available to us. Give us a call on 01629 826 497, or take a look at the links below, Facebook, all the usual kind of stuff. Thanks very much for watching. Doppelbuchse.